In this tutorial, we will be discussing things to keep in mind when you are looking for a job or thinking about your future career if you have a juvenile criminal record. We will talk about how much of your record an employer can see and barriers to working in certain fields. This web tutorial was funded by a grant from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention of the U.S. Department of Justice. Today's presenters are Sarah Zier, an attorney with the nonprofit organization Team Child, and Jerry Chavez, an attorney with the Skagit County Office of Public Defense.
In this web tutorial, we'll provide a broad overview on what kind of information from court records employers can and can't see, restrictions on specific fields of work if you have a criminal history, whether there are limitations on applying for college and financial aid due to a criminal history, sealing juvenile court records, and useful resources to help with employment questions.
Your criminal record can be viewed by the public, including employers. Criminal history includes both adult convictions and juvenile adjudications. Adjudication is the legal term for a conviction for a crime in juvenile court. Juvenile records are not confidential and they are not destroyed when you turn 18. Criminal records are available through the court, private agencies that provide background check services, and the Washington State Patrol database. Employers can legally ask you if you have been convicted of a crime, even juvenile crimes, and even misdemeanor crimes. Employers can also ask you if you have ever been arrested or charged with a crime that did not lead to a conviction. To honestly fill out a job application, you should report any information the employer asks for. Typically, you do not have to report crimes that have been sealed. We will talk about sealing a little later in this tutorial. Some tips for filling out a job application. Many applications will only ask about convictions, but be aware that the employer may run a background check and be able to see non-conviction data such as dismissals. So be prepared to explain the situation at an interview even if you don't have to report it on the application. During the interview, always focus on the positive. Tell the employer all of the good things that you have accomplished since that conviction that prepare you well for the job that you are seeking. Another tip, while this is more common with landlords, an employer may ask you to provide a background check yourself. If this happens, get your background check through the Washington State Patrol, not through a private agency. The Washington State Patrol will not include non-conviction data like dismissals, and they update their records regularly, so sealed records should not appear. The same is not always true of records maintained by private background check companies. There is another type of criminal record that juveniles may have that is not considered a conviction. That is a diversion record. Diversion records are not accessible to the public and are not convictions. If an employer asks for convictions, you do not need to list cases that you have went through diversion on.
There are several jobs where it is required for employers to do criminal background checks. Those include jobs working with children or vulnerable adults. Vulnerable adults are older adults, adults with disabilities, and adults who receive services from an individual provider. Examples of jobs working with children or vulnerable adults include working at a school or daycare, working at a nursing home, or working at a program that provides services to children or older adults or adults who have disabilities. Some types of crimes might prevent you from getting jobs working with children or vulnerable adults. One is crimes against persons. Another is crimes of financial exploitation. And another is crimes relating to drugs. These categories are very broad and include a lot of different crimes. Crimes against a person include offenses when there is a person who is the victim. Examples are assault and robbery and many more. This often includes even assault 4, which is a misdemeanor, or simple assault. Crimes of financial exploitation include theft, even theft 3, which is a misdemeanor. That's a charge you might get for shoplifting. Facilities that are licensed to work with vulnerable adults will also ask you about crimes relating to drugs, including possession, and may consider this in hiring. The specific convictions that can prevent you from getting a job will depend on exactly what kind of place you want to work. A school is different than a daycare facility, and those are different from a nursing home. Some crimes will permanently prevent you from working at programs that help children or vulnerable adults. In other cases, after a certain amount of time goes by, you may be able to get a job doing this kind of work.
Most medical careers also involve working with children or vulnerable adults, so the information you just heard will apply to most jobs in the medical field as well. Most jobs in the medical field require a professional license or certification. Some examples include massage therapist, physical therapist, nursing assistant, medical assistant, dental assistant, mental health counselor, and chemical dependency counselor. You should contact the licensing board of the state where you want to work for the specific information related to your profession. Just because a college or technical school admits you into a program for a medical profession does not mean that you will qualify to be licensed after you graduate. You should check on licensing requirements early on in your studies. Often college counselors can assist in this. In Washington, professional medical licenses are handled through the Department of Health. You can find more information specific to your license at the Department of Health website. We have a link in the references.
Jobs require a professional license. Some examples are barbers or other cosmetologists, real estate agents, tattoo and body piercing artists, engineers, taxi drivers, and many others. Even lawyers and doctors have professional licenses. Each profession has different requirements for licensing. You should research this before you attend a school program or spend a lot of money to prepare to get your license. You can contact the state government agency that gives licenses for the jobs you are interested in to ask for information about how a certain criminal record might impact getting a particular professional license. If you are calling to get information, you don't have to give your name if you are just researching information, but it is helpful to know the specific crime that you were convicted of so that you can get accurate information. Most professional license applications ask for criminal background information. Even if a past crime is not a bar to getting a professional license, you may have to explain it when you apply for a professional license.
When applying for military service, you must disclose all convictions and adjudications, including those that have been sealed and vacated. This is contrary to the general advice I gave above, saying that you do not have to report sealed convictions. In fact, for any job with the federal government, not just military service, you must report sealed convictions. A felony will generally preclude military service. However, each branch has the discretion to grant waivers. Even sealed juvenile adjudications will likely require a waiver. The inability to possess a firearm will bar military service until you have the right reinstated in court. I speak more about firearm rights a little later in this tutorial. For specifics, speak to a recruiter in the branch that you desire to join. The website to find a recruiter near you is linked in the resources. Some jobs require that you have the ability to carry a firearm, such as law enforcement and the military. If you have a juvenile adjudication, finding of not guilty by reason of insanity, or dismissal after a deferral for certain crimes, your right to possess firearms was revoked. Crimes that revoke your firearm rights include all felonies, and certain misdemeanors if domestic violence designation is proven. The domestic violence misdemeanors that revoke your firearm rights are assault, coercion, stalking, reckless endangerment, criminal trespass in the first degree, and violation of a protection or no contact order. Possessing a firearm after your right has been revoked is a felony crime. The right does not automatically come back at 18 or 21 or a certain number of years after the conviction. You must petition the court to reinstate your right. You cannot ever get your firearm rights back if you were convicted of a Class A felony or a sex offense. You can reinstate your firearm rights for other felonies and misdemeanors after waiting the required amount of time. The minimum time is 3 years for misdemeanors and 5 years for felonies. Reinstating your firearm rights is a somewhat complicated legal matter, and you'll probably want to consult an attorney for assistance. The law on reinstating firearm rights is RCW 941040, and a link is provided in the resources. Sealing juvenile court records does not reinstate your firearm rights. If you need to carry a firearm for your employment, you must reinstate your rights. As a side note to attorneys, while sealing does not reinstate one's firearm rights, it may be a legal defense to the charge of unlawful possession of a firearm. See the case In Re Firearm Rights of Nelson in the references.
Many jobs require you to have a driver's license because you have to drive as part of your job. Many juvenile offenses result in suspension of a driver's license or the ability to get a driver's license. These include many driving offenses like driving under the influence, minor in the possession of drugs or alcohol, and minor in the possession of a firearm. The loss of a license is for a set period of time. Ask your defense attorney about how long you will lose your driver's license as part of your sentence. If your driver's license is suspended, you will not be eligible for jobs that require driving. In some cases, like minor in possession of alcohol or drugs, you can apply to the court for early reinstatement of your driver's license. In other cases, you can apply to the Department of Licensing to get an occupational restricted license. An occupational restricted license can give you limited driving privileges for work and school or other circumstances. However, not all offenses are eligible for these programs. In some cases, you have to wait for a set period of time before you can get any driver's license. It is important to know that if you drive while you have a suspended license, you can face a new criminal charge. That could result in a new conviction, a lot of fines and fees, and an even longer time period of a suspended license.
Some jobs will require that you have the ability to travel to Canada. Canadian border officials have the ability to run a criminal history check on people entering Canada from the U.S. Many adult convictions bar admission to Canada, but juvenile adjudications may not bar admission to Canada. Canadian immigration law can make an exception for offenses under the Young Offenders Act, which is comparable to our Juvenile Court Act. If a Canadian Border Patrol agent asks you if you have been convicted of a crime, respond yes, but only as a juvenile. There are other reasons that you may be inadmissible to enter Canada other than a conviction, including not being honest to border officials. For more information, see the website in our resources section on Canadian immigration.
Some jobs require you to have college education to get the job. Having a juvenile criminal record can impact your ability to get into college. There is another webinar on how juvenile records impact education, and you may want to watch that for more information. Briefly, different colleges treat an applicant's criminal history differently. Some colleges and universities ask about criminal history. Others do not ask the student, but may get the information from teachers or counselors. Eligibility for the Washington State Needs Grant is not affected by juvenile criminal history and is determined through the Federal Application for Financial Student Aid, or FAFSA, application, which excludes juvenile arrests and adjudications from being considered. There's a specific web tutorial on getting your juvenile records sealed. Since sealing records is so important to employment, we'll say just a little bit about it. To get more detailed information, you should watch the other web tutorial to learn about how to seal your record. When your juvenile record is sealed, you do not need to tell an employer about it. State law says that when a juvenile record is sealed, it is treated as if the case does not exist, and you can answer that it never happened. However, please know that the record may show up on a background check anyway, depending on who runs the background check. The courts or state patrol should not reveal your record once it is sealed, but this is not foolproof. The reporting agency may not have received notice that your record was sealed, or private companies may have information about your juvenile record and may disclose it in private background checks. Because a sealed juvenile record may show up in a check, it is a difficult personal decision to decide how to respond to a potential employer. You have the right to say a sealed juvenile case never happened, but that may create problems for you if the employer somehow finds out about it. Finally, even if you sealed your record, it can be unsealed. An order sealing juvenile records is nullified, or in other words, unsealed, if you are charged with an adult felony or another juvenile offense. Ask your defense attorney about this if you face a new charge. The biggest takeaway is, don't assume your juvenile record is automatically sealed when you apply for a job. Make sure you check. You may need to take steps to seal your record.
On the right-hand side of your screen, we've added a variety of links to the websites with additional information. To navigate to one of the websites, just highlight the name and then click on the button below it that says Browse To. Good luck in your job search.